And I'm Jen.
And we're SpielMill.
And this is our segment where we talk about a game mechanism and we pick our top 10 games using that mechanism.
That's right. And this time we picked pattern building. So there's a little bit of overlap with pattern building in some of the themes we've done before, like tile laying. Because a lot of tiling games are pattern building games. But there's other areas, like there's some dice building games. There's all kinds of pattern building games. Roll and rights that are pattern building.
Yeah.
So a big thing we did is we made a list of the games that are tagged as pattern building games on Board Game Geek. However, that list was not comprehensive, but we did, I think, work mostly off that list.
Yeah, I did too.
So.
I have a parenthetical aside on one game that I picked because I think there's a better choice of game, and I even checked, and it is not tagged on BGG, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
All right.
So I just want to say a little bit about how I think about pattern building and how I thought about it when I chose my best, because there were some really, really good games I love that were tagged that I just didn't pick because I don't feel like it tickles my brain the way pattern building is.
Yeah.
For me, pattern building is about sort of the relationship between the things you put down and following a set of rules that's either stable or changes, but that you've got to try to make sure that you're getting the most out of everything that you sort of lay out in your pattern and how they either relate to each other or the number of them or something like that. And so that's really what I was looking for, is that logistical, like crunchy puzzle that's so exciting.
I mean, that was very detailed. I just try to pick what I thought were the best and most on point games. You know, so that match, kind of like what we were saying, that match the pattern building idea, but I also enjoyed the most. And then, went with that. That's all.
All right.
Nothing too sophisticated there.
Do you have any honorable mentions?
Yes, I have 4.
Oh, wow. Okay, go ahead.
I also will say I did maintain a certain amount of diversity in the games that I chose. Like I chose some games because they were unique and different.
Yeah.
So honorable mention has a couple of those. And one of them is Nut, which is a really small, the size of a pack of gum card game where you're overlaying cards to collect patterns of same colored acorns on a tree.
Now, I didn't list that, but I co-sign that. I love Nut, and I agree.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So that was my first one.
Okay. My first honorable mention is one we've really only played once or twice, and so that's why I didn't make it further up. But I think it might go further up if we play more. It is a roll and write that we have as a print and play, although I think you can buy it, and that is Quiltable Paper Quilts. First of all, I love the theme.
It's a print and play, I believe.
Love the theme. I mean, you know, I grew up sewing. I've made quilts. I love this, but it's also really crunchy. There's like a whole huge list of different scoring conditions that you can make it depending on the pattern you get onto your quilt. It is so deep for essentially a fairly simple roll and write because of that huge list of scoring conditions. And between that and the theme, I really love it. And again, had we played this more than once or twice a couple months ago, I think this would be much higher.
And I do want to point out that depending on when you're watching this video, this designer has a new game on Kickstarter, Quiltable Christmas. And that's available. I think that funding ends in December 2024, later in the month. So towards Christmas. So
it's print and play too, right?
It's a print and play, so you'll be able to get it before Christmas, and but you know, it's something to check out on that point. My next honorable mention is, when I saw this, I was like, wow, I can't believe that's pattern building, but it is. And it's such a good game. We really enjoyed it, and that's Tukey. And Tukey is sort of this like speed racing game where you're building patterns of like kind of like log pieces, but they're cylindric. Well, not cylindric. They're like rectangular. Anyway, that's really fun. So,
all right. My next honorable mention is Not Dice. It is more pattern building than game. It's
That's
basically
true, yeah.
kind of just pattern building, but it's dice that have pieces of a Celtic cross on them, and then you roll them, and then there's a bunch of different ways you can play to make patterns out of it and to compete with the person that you're playing with. It is so pretty. It is beautiful. I love making that Celtic cross. I love it so much. Again, it's more pattern than game. The games are pretty simple, but it's just so gorgeous, and we've had so much fun with this when we've played it. So it definitely gets an honorable mention spot for me.
Another one on my list is Force of Pangaea. This is actually a really good abstract sort of thematic game where it's about tree growing and death and the cycle of trees, basically. Kind of like photosynthesis, but I think it's even better than photosynthesis as a game. Really good and beautiful wooden pieces. Really fun. Really like this one.
I don't have any more honorable mentions, but I'm going to say that there's some games on here like Bonfire, which are really probably very high on my actual top 100 list. And I can see how it's pattern building because the way you put down those pieces, which tell you how many moves of each type you get. But it's just such a small part of the game that for me, that Tawantinsuyu, Takenu, they don't make my top 10 list, even though technically they're pattern building, but it's the pattern building isn't the part of the game.
Well, that's why Bonfire was my last honorable mention, because it's not a major part of the game. I really like Bonfire. I don't really remember how to play. I realized recently when I tried to play online. So I got a refresh on how to play, but it's a beautiful game and stuff on Feld. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, then we get into our top 10.
Top 10.
Woo! Who's going first?
I don't know.
So my number 10 is a game which actually could have been on our Christmas list, but it's not actually technically Christmas themed, but that is Gingerbread House by Phil Walker Harding. I'd really, really like to get this to the table. It's been a hot minute since we've played, but this game is so much fun. You've got this like 3x3 grid in front of you, and you're taking pieces and you're putting them down, and each one depicts like a piece of candy. And when you put it down, you get that. If you cover two of the same piece with a 2-piece, then you get 3 of that. So it's like really, you're trying to get like 2 next to each other that are the same that you really need. So there's that level to it. And then you're building up. And you have to have stairs. You have to put stairs down if you're going to go up a level. Super, super clever, super thinky. I think it's actually one of the more complex Phil Walker Harding games. And you are, as you collect those pieces, you're using them to capture fairy tale characters because you're a witch. So I just think it's a really kind of clever and charming theme. Maybe more suited to Halloween, but the gingerbread, and more chunky than you would think at first glance.
That's a good choice.
All right, that's my number 10.
All right, my number 10 is a roll and write legacy game called Ada Lovelace: Legacy of the Analytical Machine, and this is what I said it is. It's a roll and write legacy game where you're basically placing polynomal shapes and in a way to achieve certain goals and to solve a mystery of sorts. And you go through, I think it's 11 scenarios. And after each scenario, you get like some kind of legacy reward, usually. And it's actually really, really fun. I've played through it twice and I've really enjoyed it. So I've played it over 20 times. Really enjoyed it so far. And I just thought it would be a nice fit for this list.
Yeah, I think I've only played it once or twice, and it is a really enjoyable game.
So my number 10 is Ada Lovelace and Legacy of the Analytical Machine.
My number 9 is a game called Wild Serengeti. And first of all, I love the theme because it is about being on safari, but you're making a documentary about the animals, which I love. We're seeing a lot more games like that now where you're taking pictures of animals or in being involved in conservation in some way or another. It used to be that it was all like hunting. If there were animals, it was like hunting. So that's less the case now. But this game is really beautiful, and it's a lot more tricky than you think. You're putting animals out onto the plains. There's another word for it. I can't think of what it is. And
Savannah?
Savannah. Yes, that's it. And you're trying to get them into a particular order to get the best shot of it. But your opponent can also see the cards and can scoop you, and they're also putting down animals, and you can move your animals. So there's a lot going on there that make this really tricky in trying to get that pattern that you need for that shot list, for that movie that you're making, to get that done in time. So I really think this was so much fun, and such a beautiful game. Nice 3D, you got a 3D like rock formation, and really lovely wooden animals. So a lot of table presence too. And that is my number 9, Wild Serengeti.
Yeah, it didn't make my list. I'm a little surprised because I really enjoyed that one. But my number 9 is kind of a very top game, I guess, because it's really popular, and that is Azul. Azul, and this is kind of a stand-in for any of the Azuls, really. And so, like, I love the variation of the different Azuls. The base game is really fun and easy, but I like the Queen's Garden is more complex and more deep, and I like that variety that the different Azul games provide. And I just love, they're really nice tactile tile placement games with each one has its own unique pattern building, which is really fun. So that's my number 9, Azul.
All right, I love Azul as well. My number 8 is one that I've actually only played on BGA, and we passed this by on Kickstarter because we thought it looked a little simple. It's actually really a lot more challenging than it seems. And with the theme and the pattern building, I'm really enjoying Forever Home. It's super cute. You're just getting dogs and getting them to their forever home, but you've got to not only like get the right cards and get the dogs out on the grid in front of you, but it has to match so that it matches the pattern you're trying to build. But then you also are trying to fill certain scoring categories which change every game, and so that keeps it from being really samey. It makes it just that much more complicated. And again, when I think about patterns, I'm thinking about pattern building, I'm thinking about like trying to think about 3 different things at once, where I'm trying to, yes, meet that shape, but I also really need to rehome a city dog or a lap dog or whatever it is. So I'm trying to get all of those, meet all of those criteria in one go, or is it in few turns as possible. And so this kind of does that for me in that way. Yes, that's my number 8, Forever Home.
All right, good choice. That one I don't know, because I don't really know what I'm doing. I've played it online a couple times and I just haven't read the rules. So I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm sure it's good. All right, my number 8 is Sagrada Artisans. And this is it's a legacy version of Sagrada. So I'm kind of standing in for both. I probably like Azul better than Sagrada, but I like Sagrada Artisans even more. So the legacy version of this was really fun. It's basically a roll and write version of Sagrada, and it added all these different elements. And I really like the different elements it adds. Plus, there's things you can do after you complete the campaign. So it's not something that just for the duration of the campaign. Right. So I really enjoyed this. Again, it's pattern building. I kind of put Sagrada and Azul in roughly the same category of games. So it makes sense that they're back-to-back for me. So anyway, I really enjoy Sagrada, and this Sagrada Artisans just makes it better. So my number 8 is Sagrada Artisans.
All right. My number 7 is, you mentioned as an honorable mention, and that is Tukey. I really love Tukey. We've really enjoyed this. Like you said, you've got a bunch of blocks, and you are looking at a pattern basically, and you're trying to build that pattern,
Yep.
but it's a race against other people at the table. We've had a lot of fun. We've played this a lot with our family, and it's one that brings anybody to the table. Like you could play this with almost anybody. I'm surprised I enjoy it this much, because sometimes I struggle with that 3D rendering, but I really do. I really like it in this milieu of a board game. Tukey is just, again, that looking at that prototype, that 2D model, and then trying to build that, and like counting up, okay, how tall is that actually? I need that not to fall over, is just a delight. Really love this one.
Really fun one.
Mm-hmm. So that is my number 7, Tukey.
Good choice. My number 7 is a classic of a game. I really enjoy it. We got the special edition. It's Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy, of course, this is a whole pattern building where you're following a pattern to build your pattern. But you have to match different terrain tiles to different terrain, and try to maximize your points as you do so. Really fun, really classic game, really well known. I like that it's like not super complex, so it's actually introducible to people who are not as deep into board gaming, but maybe not so much a gateway game though either. So, but it's a good game. So.
Yeah. Believe it or not, this did not make my list.
Mm-hmm.
I love this game. I love the game, but again, it just something about it didn't hit me as tickling the pattern building part of my brain. So.
It's like
but
pattern filling maybe more than building, but yeah, it works.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it definitely was on the list. So, all right, excellent choice.
All right, that's my number 7, Castles of Burgundy.
My number 6 is, it's also a legacy game, and that is My City. And over My Island, I think. I didn't like My Island as much as I liked My City. We've now played My City, both roll and write and regular campaign, both in person and online on BGA. I really, really love this game. I love the way the sort of criteria of how you're laying down the buildings and their relationship to the board and the relationship to each other evolves throughout the game. And so you'll get a new scoring category, a new rule that'll be in place for a couple of rounds, and like just when you're perfecting it, but it's out and there's something new in that you have to build around. I think it is like a pretty simple game that is also really complex. The depth of thinking about what am I going to do, or what shapes are left, trying to figure out, okay, I need to leave a spot for that one when the churches come in, that dreaded church that's shaped like a plus sign that you have to leave room for. Really a lot to this game. I really love this game. So that is my number 6, My City.
All right, good choice. Love My City. My number 6 is from a series. It's really a series of solo games. In particular, I'm going to pick Forage, which is the newest one. But the 3 games are Grove, Orchard, and Forage. And these are pattern building. And you get these cards with different orchards, obviously like a fruit orchard. Forage is based in a forest. And you're overlaying the different cards to match colors. And then placing dice on them to keep track of points, or positive or negative, and trying to maximize your points. It's really, really fun. When I play this, I tend to play it like 10 games at a time. I think last week I played it 40 times. I played Forage 40 times.
I thought this might be on your list.
I am disabled and I have a lot of downtime, and I can sit there in my recliner and play Forage, so it works really well. So those are really, really, really fun little solo game, really cheap. You can get it for like $12, and it's just fantastic. So, yep. All right. My number 6 is Forage. Or Orchard or Grove.
I haven't played for Forage. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, it looks good. It did not, I saw you playing it last week, and I thought, oh, you got Orchard out again. And it took me a couple times walking past you to realize that was actually the new version. So I'll have to have you teach me so I can learn it. Looks good. All right, my number 5
And I should mention that Orchard and Grove are on BGA. So if you want to try them out, you can try them out on BGA.
I don't think I realized that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, my number 5 is a little game called Earth. We've played this in person a couple times. I've been playing it a lot on BGA. It's a lot on BGA. For some reason, like I could whip out a game of Agricola. Of course, I've played like 50 games of Agricola without even like batting an eye. But Earth, like I'm always like, oh, I've got to take my turn. Okay, I've got to stop and I've got to read all the cards and try to remember what I'm doing. But it really is, again, that like multi-layered decision-making process that I love. You know, we've got, 4 different criteria that I have to meet, and each card is, gonna give you extra powers. If you put a mushroom above it, then the mushrooms are cheaper.
Right.
And you've got your own personal goals, and it's just, there's so much going on there. I was actually surprised when I first saw it as pattern building and wasn't sure it was, but it really is. It's about, again, that relation between, the cards to each other and to the scoring criteria, and trying to maximize all of those, as well as maximize, your resources. So you don't want to put down something that costs you 13 dirt, which is maybe all your dirt, unless that card is like really powerful and it's going to hit, check, 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 like 4 boxes. So I find that just really fun and satisfying. And I've been having a lot of fun playing around with this on BGA. And yeah, so that's Earth.
I like it more in person than BGA. And BGA just can't pay enough attention to the different cards and the details. So
I'd agree. I like it more in person as well. And I think I lose every game I play on BGA because sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna, whatever. I can't like max my turn out. But on those turns that I have like the brain power to dig in, and I keep playing it. So I must really like it.
Yeah. My number 5 is another nature game, nature themed game, and this one's called Cascadia. And Cascadia is you're building basically sections of habitat and placing animals on top. And so it is, or with different animals. So it is really fun, and it's simple and fun and satisfying and relaxed and chill all at the same time. So I think it meets a lot of good criteria, especially it's a good gateway game we found. Introduce it to other people and stuff like that. And I just really enjoy this one and happy to have it in my top 10. Number 5, Cascadia.
Yeah. Again, this is another one that my eyes just sort of slid over it and was thinking, I don't know if that's really why I like it, but you're right, it is. It's those scoring cards and trying to get the salmon in the right configuration. And okay. All right. Maybe that should be on here, but it's not.
It's not. C'est la vie.
C'est la vie. So my number 4 is one of those ones that I think I mentioned earlier with an asterisk, because so Ue has a bunch of abstract games, right? Sagani, Nova Luna, and Framework. And I think they're all sort of very similar. I think he was playing with sort of this idea about pattern building and relationships. And the only one that's tagged with pattern building is Sagani. So but
they're all pattern.
But they're all pattern building, and my favorite of the 3 is Nova Luna. And I don't know why, I just really like it. I do really well at it. I think my win percentage on it is pretty high for some reason. But that's not why I like it. Why I like it is, I think that's just evidence that it clicks in my brain. Like this clickety click. I get it. Like I see that. I have a plan. I can build it out. I just really like this one. When those like discs like fly off your thing, like doot 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 doot, and you've achieved like 5 different patterns in one go when you just laid that cornerstone in there, is so satisfying. And I really like this. I really like it. And I like all of his abstract pattern building games, but Nova Luna is my favorite.
All right, good choice. So that's it.
Yes, that's my number 4 was the Uwe pattern building, but specifically Nova Luna.
Okay, just want to make sure you're done. My number 4, I think, is the first official crossover of the list.
Okay.
And that is My City. So My City, of course, is a legacy game. Jen talked about it already from Reiner Knizia. And it is just really fun. I don't want to talk about it too long. She already talked about it, but it's really fun. Played this in person and online. I actually enjoy it both ways quite a bit. I thought it was really fun in person, and I'm finding it quite satisfying online. I probably pay a little less attention to all the rules online in each scenario. Not that they don't change much, but you know, I just online in general, I'm just not good about rules. Just because, you know, I don't know, I play quickly, and you know,
yeah.
So I probably get a little more satisfaction in person, but I really enjoy this. It's a legacy game. It's a quick, light legacy game. You could play through this. We played through this as 2 players, and it was fantastic. And you could play it through it many, many times and enjoy it every time.
Yeah.
You have a slight advantage on your replays because you do remember, like, oh yeah, if I do you could tank certain scenarios. I don't do this, but you could tank certain scenarios to get certain rewards that make you better.
Yeah.
People do that.
Oh, do they?
Mm-hmm.
I'm way too competitive for that. Are you kidding?
I don't do that.
No.
Because that's like, I don't know. It's unfair to other people who are newer too.
Yeah, that too.
So, or don't remember. Yeah. All right. So that's my number 4, My City crossover.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. My number 3 is it's another 3-dimensional game, and that is Mental Blocks. And I think this is so interesting, and it's so high because it's so interesting.
Yeah,
because you're trying to build something, and you're looking at it from different perspectives, and so, you know, we're working to try to build the same thing. You can fill in if I'm wrong here, but we're not seeing it from the same angle. In our card that is telling us what we're building, again, it's from different angles. And so I've got to meet my requirements and you've got to meet yours, but we've got to build it together. And that is what an interesting, it's all that like scratchy in my brain for pattern building and like meeting the conditions, but in a co-op game with somebody else with hidden information.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Boom. So clever.
This probably should have been my list, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Oh well.
More variation for the public.
Yep. All right. My number 3 is one of my favorite pattern building games. It's really light, but I really love it thematically, and it's obviously one of my favorite like park building games, and that is Habitats. Habitats is so much fun. I just really like the simplicity of the design in this one, and it just feels the most like I'm actually building a park that I want to have. Like, I want this to be my park.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy this one.
It does. It's so pretty too. It just the I can just picture the like deep blues. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's very
You end up with a park that you want to visit.
Yeah, I want to visit my park. So, all right, but that's my number 3 is a wonderful game from Swally Games and reprinted by Board Game Tables or All Play now, and that is Habitats.
All right. My number 2 and 1, I have switched the order several times during this list, just so you know. I'm going to go with where it is right now. My numbers are wrong because I've switched it again. But my number 2 is Calico.
Okay.
It's almost painful. I find Calico really hard.
It's really stressful.
It's very stressful.
In a good way, but
in a good way.
Stressful.
In a good way. But it is that stress that is exactly what I like, what I'm looking for in pattern building. Like, to me, maybe it should be number 1. Maybe I should switch them back because it's the quintessential pattern building game. It's like, okay, I've got to build this pattern, but this pattern is going to touch that pattern, and I will violate that pattern if I put this here. And you're trying to make all of these different competing, needs happen at one time. And it's like that gif or meme or whatever it is, where you see all like the math figures, right? And you're like, somebody looks entirely confused and overwhelmed. That's kind of how I feel sometimes playing Calico, but that is so fun. And of course the art is darling, and you've got these kitty cats, and I'm like, I want to make it happen so I can get a cat on my board, right? That's part of the stress, is you got to get that cat on your board. But I really enjoy this, and it hits all of those like places in my brain that get excited when you tell me I have to try to make 17 conflicting things happen at once. I love that shit. That is my number 2 or number 1, depending on which 10 minutes you're in. Calico.
Well, my number 2 might be controversial, because you mentioned earlier that you didn't think there was much pattern building in it. And I guess you're right. There isn't much pattern building in it. But I really like it. And it's just a fantastic game. So I chose it anyway. And that's Tawantinsuyu.
I thought this might end up on your list. Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. There is some.
Tawantinsuyu is one of the T games. Super complex. Euro. I believe Turchi's the designer, David Turchi. And it is just so good. It's got cool pattern stuff you have to do to get resources. And then you have to, like, I don't know, you're doing all kinds of things, to be honest. And I love those games where you're doing all kinds of things. So of course I had to have one of these in here. Okay? Leave me alone.
And
anyway.
your tapestry or your weaving that you're building is sort of a little bit
the quilting
is
piece,
also
that's a small part of the game, but the quilting piece is definitely pattern building.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Where you put your meeples,
there's a whole pattern thing going on there, based on the game board and stuff. But yeah, so I really enjoyed this one. And what can I say? It's a fantastic game, and that is Tawantinsuyu, my number 2.
I thought this might be on your list, and I looked at it. I hemmed and hawed over it because I also love this game a lot. It's definitely high in my top 100, but just in terms of why I like it, I went with a different list.
It's interesting how little crossover. We usually have more crossover, but we'll see. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is a crossover.
Okay.
You've already mentioned it.
Okay.
And that is Sagrada Artisans.
Oh, wow. Number 1. Woo!
Yeah. Again, with pattern building, I don't know, maybe it's Calico. I don't know. But I love Sagrada Artisans way more than Sagrada. I would not say this is like you could swap them out. A lot of times with legacy games, I might swap out the regular. Not in this case. For me, it was a legacy element that made this so much fun. The games got really complex. The shape that you were filling in with your dice changed, over the course of the game. I love the fact that you're coloring instead of just putting dice down. It's like paint by numbers on acid or something. I don't know. It's just really, some of the later games got super, super, super complex. And this one also, like, it hits my brain right. I did well at this game. I think you might have won the full campaign, but I did win a lot. I don't remember. I won a lot of games, and it just, like, it clicks in there. It made sense to me. Like, I got this. I loved it. There's so many things about this game to love, but it satisfied that analytic part of my brain that wants to make order out of chaos, that does not want to be orderly. So that's why I really loved it. Plus the coloring.
Good choice.
And that is my number 1, Sagrada Artisans.
My number 1 has not been mentioned yet. It is a really fun game, polyomino building, but it's got this pattern building going with it, and that is Isle of Cats. Yeah. Really enjoy Isle of Cats. I like both the board game and the roll and write version are both excellent. The board game is a little bit better because it's tactile and all that, and you got card drafting and stuff, which I really enjoy. And the roll and write, though, is really fun.
It is really fun.
And it scratches the itch with less time and effort if that works for you. But yeah, so I'm really happy with this. I really enjoyed it, and that is my number 1. I like the theme a lot too. You're rescuing cats and putting them on a boat, and then you're trying to pattern build out, like, get your different colors into groups of family and meet different goals in your cards by filling up this area and matching that. And, you know, just so much fun.
This definitely is higher in my top 100 than a lot of games that were on this list. But again, just in terms of like what it does to my brain, my head, and which part of it I like and what makes me love the game, just wasn't the pattern building part of it. But I can totally see how that would be on your list. That makes sense.
Yep. My number 1, I love cats. All right, so, you know, we don't say this enough, but we really appreciate you subscribers. Thank you for watching. Please let us know in the comments what you think of our top 10 and what your choices would be for your favorite pattern building games.
Yes, I'm interested because, again, BGG did a terrible job of actually noting what games are pattern building and what games aren't. So there's probably some really good ones we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear what your recommendations are there.
Yeah, because it all depends on user tagging. You know what I mean? So
get the tagging.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Remember,
every day that you game
is a holiday.